welcome back to everybody that's been hoping to, get to hear us for. It's been a minute since we last got together here on For the North. I am PJ.
I'm Chris, and hey, we thought of doing a pre-draft analysis of all the prospects and everything, and we lead a very busy life, so we decided instead we would let the draft happen. We are not going to go into every pick, at least not this year. Not this year with the start of it, of something new that we're doing. And we're going to do a draft analysis of each of the four NFC North teams. I don't think we said the name of the podcast either. We are back at For the North. Hey, we're rusty. It's been a couple weeks. So,
It might have been a few weeks. So yeah, we took. If you didn't notice, we might have taken a hiatus. As Chris said, we were, kind of tossing around some different ideas, what we wanted to talk about, what we wanted to do, whether or not we were going to do pre-draft or post-draft. So here we are, right? We're back and better than ever. Or we'll be rusty and people will have to deal with it and they'll listen anyway.
Hey, at least we're off to a good start. We still have energy this late because, as some of you may know, we record the podcast in the evening, a little late for both of us based on our busy schedules. But not to divert too much longer. The draft happened this last week.
Yep.
Last week, yeah.
Yeah, exactly about this time last week. We're recording this on Thursday, so it happened this time last week, basically. So,
Yeah, well, let's dive right in. I will mention the Bears. They were very defensive heavy to start. I have some cons, not based on that, just based on my overall thoughts on their draft. They neglected to improve the pass rush. Just not getting any one of the interior defensive linemen in the draft. This comes from a team that was ranked 30th in that department last year, and I know the fans will be expecting them to address it in free agency. Yeah. I know I would for my team as well. Hopefully the Bears organization does look at that, but I have pretty good confidence in the Bears front office because they are able to get some last minute free agents pretty consistently. Much to the frustration of PJ and I.
Right. They always seem to. It seems that all the NFC North teams somewhat snipe each other's free agent pickups and kind of are waiting in the wings to go ahead and swoop in and steal a player that hits the waivers or steal a player that is on the open market. So such as rivalries, right?
Yes, it'll happen quite a bit here. And we could even go more into depth maybe for trivia in the near future, which let us know if you want to see some more trivia that you saw last year for a couple of episodes. Let us know if you'd like to do that this year, and we will get that rolling. I think we'll do it anyway, but...
Yeah, well, we're going to do it. If you want to participate in that would be really cool. But, drop a comment below. If you're listening, drop a comment below and let us know if you would like some trivia, and engage with the content here. We appreciate that sort of thing. So
definitely. Back to the Bears cons. Was the second one I have. There was a lot of or there was not a lot of raw starting potential. There is potential
Mm-hmm.
for the guys that are joining the organization, but it may take time for them to develop, which might set them back this year
Yeah.
from the success that they had last year in making or getting close to making the NFC Championship.
Yeah. I mean, I think about the only guy that I saw the Bears draft that I was really high on, that I really liked as a day one plug and play kind of guy, was Logan Jones. I'm, and this kind of goes into the pros, the pros, column here, but like Logan Jones to me was kind of the hit for them. He was the guy. He was a guy that both you and I have mentioned by name, either via text or on this podcast about that's a guy that we would have wanted. So I think that's the solid guy that probably has starting potential for the Bears.
Yeah. Well, and I would say, I mean, Dylan Simonman might, but there with a guy who played very well coming out of a great defensive scheme.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how it will translate to the NFL. So there's, I mean, like I said, a lot of potential.
Yeah.
I don't know about starting potential this year. That is my biggest question.
Yeah.
For a lot of the Bears draft picks.
Yeah, you needed day one plug and play kind of guys for a team that, like you said, they were on the cusp of the NFC Championship, and they're probably a couple of pieces away from being a really serious contender. Not that they weren't last year, but I think you get a couple of pieces and you really hit on these draft picks, you could be looking at another run to the divisional round or the NFC Championship. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and if I'm a Bears fan, I would be concerned about the draft choices, but I would not panic.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like there is going to be a healthy skepticism, like, are these guys going to be long-term team players, or are they never going to develop and turn into bust? That is the risk that is the risk you take with the draft.
Yeah.
Hopefully for Bears fans, it doesn't go that way. That they are only in the NFL for a year before being on the practice squad. And let's hope. I mean, that's something PJ might disagree with. But
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see who can start, who has the starting potential day one, and who does not. Right now, I don't see a lot of guys with that.
Yeah.
The tight end position.
Yep.
Was seen as a questionable decision, as it seems that they added a pass blocker versus a young playmaker to complement their older roster. And if I may say, I love watching the old guys run around and make plays as much as the next guy. But at the same time, you're risking injury if you are relying on your old guys to make these big plays, especially since you just lost a big wide receiver in free agency.
Yeah, you don't have DJ Moore now, so you're down one of your weapons. You're relying on Cole Kmet, who is not a young guy anymore. He's still, he's not, old. He's not old man. He's not the old man. He's not the old vet, but he certainly is probably the most veteran of that team at this point. So it would have been nice to see the Bears kind of go after, like you said, a young playmaker. But I think, to me, the Bears draft strategy, from what I was watching, from looking back at the picks, I think they very much took the best available at that given time. I think they let the board fall the way that it fell to them and kind of drafted best available. That's where you get a tight end. And maybe it's a head-scratching decision, but that's probably, when you're looking at your big board and you say, okay, we're high on this guy, we like him, we're going to take him here because we think that if it goes any further, if this goes on into another round, we're not going to have this guy available in the third or fourth or fifth round, whatever it might be. So, you know.
Yeah. That's what I have for the cons, not to be too negative.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
So let's talk about the pros. On the defensive side, they drafted Dylan Steinman, who is seen as the top safety prospect that could help the Bears secondary. Which was considered a major area of interest for them this offseason, which they did address during the free agency, getting Kobe Bryant.
Yep.
Not the basketball player.
Unfortunately, no.
Rest in peace. You know what? We'll comment on that for another podcast. I don't have time to go into that right now.
Yeah.
What I think of what Dylan Steinman could or couldn't do, I could break it down. But we are, with doing all 4 teams tonight, we are short on time, so I will keep it short. I think he has the potential to be a good player.
Yeah.
I do not see him as being the safety number 1 on day 1.
Yeah.
That is all I'll say on that. And then they drafted along with that, they drafted an interior offensive lineman, which PJ mentioned, Logan Jones, who will start probably day 1. Mm-hmm. That was one that I would have liked to see for the Vikings. He is a great center.
Yep.
However, I am, you know what, I'll talk about the Vikings when we get there. The team prioritized explosive athletes, which could lead to big returns on their picks in the near and distant future. Mm-hmm. So, some of the athletes will have the brains and raw athletic talent to contribute right away. Some of the athletes might have the athletic talent, but might have to sit as the second or third guy for quite a while before they can start to contribute, which is what I see with one of the guys that I just mentioned in Dylan Steinman. One of the big pickups they got was Keyshawn Elliott at linebacker.
Yep.
And he could potentially help the Bears pass rush if the rest of the defense steps up. It's going to rely on, can the defensive line open up holes for the linebackers to get through? And I'm not sure yet that the Bears can do it. However, they've proven me wrong before.
Yep.
So we will see.
Yeah, we will see.
We will see. Overall, I give the Bears a B for the draft performance, as they did help to lift their secondary while providing potential but need more depth at their interior defensive line.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I like that. I think I definitely agree with, looking over the Bears draft picks and what they were doing. I really like them taking a roll of the dice on Dylan Steinman. I really like the Logan Jones pick. Obviously, there are reasons for that. I'm an Iowa fan. I've seen both of those draft picks play. They are phenomenal. Logan Jones was phenomenal at center, and part of it, kind of the centerpiece, shall we say, of it's not the Remington. It's the name of the award is going to escape me, but they won the Iowa offensive line this past year, won the award for the best offensive line in college football. I'm going to get that and put that in the comments for everybody so I don't misquote and say something wrong about the name of that award. Secondly, watch Dylan Steinman play. He was phenomenal phenomenal with gap and integrity, phenomenal at recognizing, picking up, wide receivers or playmakers coming across the field. So I think he's a great ranging. He could play. I think he would be better suited at a free safety spot. But if you give him the opportunity, he will get his hands on the ball. He is going to be able to make plays in the plays in the running game as well. But I think the thing that you said that I happen to agree with is that it's going to depend on what the rest of the defense does, and we don't necessarily know if Dylan Theinman is going to be a day one starter, but we certainly are going to see that unfold in the off season as we get through workouts and into training camp and then the preseason. So we'll see what pans out, but certainly two very exciting picks for the Bears, and I think they did what they needed to do with their draft in getting those two guys. So
yeah, and I think that's why I give them B. I think they could have been a little bit less safe with their picks. I feel like, especially in the middle rounds. But
yeah.
There's also something to be said with having a draft strategy and sticking to it when you go in there, which we will talk about with other teams a little bit later. PJ, who do you got next for us?
So we're going to jump into talking about the Lions and their draft, okay? So this didn't really surprise me about the Lions. Going into the offseason, their defense and their offensive line was pretty much decimated due to free agency and due to guys walking away or retiring, signing elsewhere. So in the draft, the Lions focused heavily on rebuilding their defenses, addressing the trenches on the offensive line and the defensive line. So to recap here, 5 out of their 7 picks for the Lions were defensive picks, okay? They focused on players that had really more of a high floor. They're tough players. There is some athleticism there, but more what they were focusing on in the end of all of this is solid starters and depth pieces to kind of rebuild up, as I said, that defense, the trenches in the offense, on the offensive line and the defensive line. Really, they did a good job of that. Ultimately, as I said, solid starters, not really blue chip stars, so to speak, but their number 17 pick was offensive tackle Blake Miller out of Clemson. We're talking about a guy that, if we run through pros and cons here, extremely durable guy, has a ton of experience, 50-plus games started in college, big, high-level athlete here, and going to be a good complement, I would think, to Penei Sewell on that offensive line, because the way that we've discussed this in previous episodes and talked about this, for the Lions to be successful, they need to run the ball with their running back tandem behind a solid, incredibly great offensive line, and I think this is a step in the right direction. Getting a guy like Blake Miller, going out and drafting in the offensive line. It's not a sexy pick. It's not a wide receiver. It's not a safety, right? It's not, it's not necessarily a playmaker, but this is a depth piece to rebuild that offensive line. Throughout the other...
One question for the offensive line for you.
Yeah.
Do you think that and I've got my thoughts on this, and I've expressed them various times over the previous podcast.
Yeah.
Do you think that the coaching could be a problem with developing these young guys coming in? Because we saw it last year. There was a lot of infighting between all the coaches, and it really concerns me with Dave Campbell leading the helm. If he can be the leader that pulls everybody together and, you know, rights the ship to move forward, that would be my main concern.
Yeah. I think there's so I would agree with you that there's been a lot of roster turnover, a lot of coaching, coaching turnover, which has caused obviously we saw it come to a head last year, and it caused a ton of turmoil in the locker room and with the players and what you're trying to do from a goal standpoint. Because I think any team that a year or two ago had was on the cusp of being in the Super Bowl, was playing in an NFC Championship game. That's a team that should have aspirations of making deep playoff runs and contending, right? So kind of they've kind of fallen off of their throne in these past couple of years, and I do largely think it has to do with the coaching style of Dan Campbell more than Dan Campbell as a coach. And when I say that, is what I mean is that Dan Campbell, I think, can rub people the wrong way. But if you can find the right pieces, right? If you can put an offensive coordinator that's really good at play calling and really good at the X's and O's, and get a defensive coordinator in there and get all of these chess pieces to move together at the same time, Dan Campbell looks like a genius, right? And that happened a couple of years ago. Right, he had Ben Johnson, he had Aaron Glenn, and that defense and that offense was clicking on all cylinders. And Dan Campbell was being the riverboat gambler that he is, and going for it on fourth down. And he would, he would say, "Oh well, it's analytics, and we don't want to punt, and we have this aggressive mentality," and it paid off for the Lions. And then eventually, what happened is it caught up with them. People started to catch on to this strategy of, okay, well, they're going to go for it on fourth down. We're going to find ways to stop these playmakers that they have on fourth down. Because the other side of that sword, when you go for it on fourth down and you don't get it, you end up looking like an idiot, right? So I think if Dan Campbell can back off of the aggressive nature and be kind of more level-headed, I think they could be successful. But I think that's a hard thing for Dan Campbell to do. Because, again, like I said, it depends on him having the right pieces around him. And ever since Ben Johnson left, he has not had the right pieces around him. It was, a fumble on offensive coordinator. The defensive coordinator was a swing and a miss. So I think you can do a lot in the draft, right? And they got a lot of draft capital, obviously, with 7 picks. But I don't know how Dan Campbell's coaching style is going to go over in this environment.
Right, and the reason I ask, and I probably should have asked this more towards the end, was the draft grade. Draft grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it. But my main concern isn't necessarily like how will he work with the other coaches, or like who can come in and be a chess piece. My main concern is, can he develop these young guys? And he came in with a pretty elite roster to begin with. Mm-hmm. So we will see what he can do when he has to rely on new players coming in to make a difference in their... so it's either... Well, to put it this way, to put it simply, he either develops these young players or he's gone.
Yeah.
Because they won't have a winning season that way.
Exactly.
If they don't.
Well, and I mean, I think the big thing that concerns me, to kind of get straight to the thick of it here, right? Like, I'm talking about their premier pick, their offensive tackle, and then in the second round they go ahead and get an edge rusher, and then they go linebacker and cornerback, and they got one skill position in the 5th round, a wide receiver out of Kentucky that I don't think is going to make a whole lot of impact when you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown and Khalif Raymond and other guys, Sam Laporta. on that.
Might be a punt return type of guy.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But they invested in defense for the draft picks, right? But part of the problem here is when you're rebuilding your trenches in the draft, what you have to do is you have to lean on a lot of young guys. You have to you're taking a roll of the dice and you're saying, okay, can this guy that we drafted, this 21, 22-year-old, come in on day one and make an impact? And like you said about the Bears draft picks, we don't know. There's a lot of potential with these draft picks that I see. I'm looking, they're athletic, smart guys. They're reliable starters. They've had a ton of experience, and I think their draft board, ended up looking really good for them, right? However, you're going to have to lean on young guys if you're Dan Campbell, and you're going to have to expect production on day one. Now, you could take a roll of the dice and that goes really well, or the other side of that is it doesn't go well. So I think there's potential there, but we just don't know enough to really determine if this is going to be a successful venture with them rebuilding the trenches in the draft. To kind of get at the meat of this, I'm a little bit skeptical about what the Lions are going to be. Their draft grade, for me, ended up being kind of a solid, like B minus. It's kind of like teetering on a C. It's really close to a C, but I like what they did. I like the potential that their draft picks have, so that's why I'm a little bit higher. I'm going to call it a B minus and kind of sit with that. And maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe we come back to this and every one of them is a bust. I can't imagine that happening, but maybe I'm wrong, right? But I think I'm going to say B minus, that I grade out the Lions with the draft.
You know what? If that was the Packers, you would probably give them a C or C plus, just because you would be a little bit more strict. I know you. We're both stricter on our own teams.
We are, and to get at that, to jump on to the next team here, a team that I'm all too familiar with, the Green Bay Packers. So. We were well aware of it going into the draft that the Packers did not have a first-round draft pick. We were well aware of the situation where they traded away 2 first-round picks to go ahead and acquire Micah Parsons in the offseason. And unfortunately, Micah Parsons went down with an ACL injury, so now we are, waiting for Micah Parsons to get healthy, which the timeline on that is foggy. Everybody you talk to that's an expert has a different opinion, but the draft capital for the first round was spent on Micah Parsons. So effectively, the Packers' first round draft pick was Micah Parsons. Beyond that, though, they went defensive heavy. All right, so the second, third, fourth round picks were all defensive guys. I really liked what they did getting Brandon Cisse, cornerback out of South Carolina. They then went ahead and traded up, got a defensive lineman out of Missouri, Chris McClellan, and then finished off in the fourth round getting an edge rusher out of Penn State, Danny Dennis Sutton. So what I see there, a lot of high motor, high athletic talent guys, okay? From a because we did it this way, where we talked about the cons first. Here's what I'm concerned about for the Packers. You are banking on, you gave Jonathan Gannon some pieces to work with here, but what you're banking on is these guys, this young cornerback, these additions that you made in free agency. The young pass rusher, the young defensive line, you're banking on, or you're going to have to lean a lot on young guys, and it's kind of the same problem that I just discussed with the Lions, where right now, Jonathan Gannon, Matt LaFleur are going to be waiting for, specifically on the defensive side, Micah Parsons and Devontae Wyatt to come back and trying to shore up that defense. Now, I think there's
potential. That timeline's still fuzzy for both of them, yeah?
Yeah, it's still fuzzy. Maybe at the soonest October is what we're looking at. But there's definitely a month of the season where Micah Parsons and Devontae Wyatt are going to be missing. And those are two big key pieces of the defense for the Packers. I think there is potential for this unit to be a top 10, a top 5 kind of defense, but that's going to take contributions from, guys that are returning, like Lucas Van Ness and Edgerrin Cooper and Evan Williams, Xavier McKinney, Javon Bullard. You're going to need to get contributions from them. You're going to need to get contributions from their new acquisitions in Zaire Franklin and Benjamin St-Juste. And then you're going to have to lean on young guys for a month, maybe more, of the season. So you're talking about September into October, maybe even mid-October, where you're going to be leaning on young guys, and Jonathan Gannon is going to have to really coach his butt off to try and get something out of these young guys. Now,
well, and if you look at it too, you're going to have to add a little bit there. You're going to have Jordan Love keep the defense off the field as well. Yeah. That was a big issue for the Packers in their losses last year. Their defense was just on the field way too much.
Yeah, no, and that's another thing that I wanted to get at is another con that I look at here for the Packers draft is that I think there was potential in whether it was the second or the third. I would probably say the second or the third round. There was potential for the Packers to address a position of need, okay? On the offensive side of the ball, there were two needs for them that I saw. In free agency, you lost Elton Jenkins and you lost Rasheed Walker, two kind of mainstay offensive linemen that helped them be successful, helped them keep Jordan Love upright. When that offensive line started having injury problems, Jordan Love was on the ground more. He was rushed. He was making wild Brett Favre-esque decisions. And we know what happens when you try to play gunslinger, right? We know. It's really great when it works, and it's really terrible when it doesn't work, right? I don't think you can live that way and be a successful offense. The other position of need, so I think they needed to address offensive line. And they needed to address the backup running back position because behind Josh Jacobs, the only option that they have really is Marshawn Lloyd. And Marshawn Lloyd has been injury prone since he got into the league. There's been flashes of what we've seen, what could be, but every time that we get a flash, he gets derailed by another injury, a hamstring, a quad, or a groin, or a back, whatever it is. He's been injury prone from the time that he got into the league. So I would very much would have liked to see the Packers address the backup running back spot in the draft. They did not do that. They did get an offensive lineman, a center out of Kentucky. I'm going to get this name. I want to get this name right. I might butcher this. Their pick out of Kentucky was Jagger Burton. Okay, he's a center, an interior offensive lineman that addresses the depth piece a little bit, but I don't know if this, the player that they drafted in round 5 is going to be a plug and play kind of guy. I think it's more of a depth piece, and I would have loved to see them spend just a little bit more draft capital and a little bit more time on trying to build up that one side of the trench, the offensive line, where they need to protect Jordan Love. There were some guys that I was in love with. I'm not going to sit here and wax poetically about what could have been, right? But I just, one of the cons I see is that they did not address, to me, as a fan, I'm being harsher on this. They did not address offensive line. They did not address the backup running back spot. Flipping over to be positive and not sit here and kind of harp on the Packers and the front office and all of this. The positives for me is that they they did give Jonathan Gannon some pieces that have potential, that could make this defensive unit a top 5 or a top 5 kind of unit. But again, that depends on what are you going to get. Like when you squeeze the juice out of this orange, what are you going to get? Okay? Counting on young guys is it's a gamble, right? So we're going to see what pans out, but I like what they did going defense, back to back to back in rounds 2, 3, 4. A real head scratcher for me that kind of knocked this draft grade down, I'm going to be honest, is drafting a kicker. Okay? I don't necessarily think that the Packers needed a kicker. All right? But I guess I will say this. I'm not mad about the pick because the positive for me with drafting a kicker is that the guy that they did draft, Trace Mack, in round number 6, has shown that he's got a big leg. He can hit from distance and should breathe life into a special teams room that has been stagnant, right? Rich Bisaccia was kept a little bit too long, in my opinion, and so there needs to be some sort of shakeup in special teams. The Packers have addressed that by drafting a kicker out of Florida and going out in free agency and getting Sky Moore. So maybe having a legitimate kick returner, punt returner, and having a kicker that can consistently hit a field goal for you and an extra point even might help out. But my nervousness about this is we know, you and I both know, kickers, especially rookie kickers, have this tendency to have a lot of peaks and valleys. There are really high highs and there are some low lows, right? And, both you and I, we've been burned by kickers. We have. So what I'm getting at here is a lot of athletes on the defensive side that could pan out if we, get good coaching out of Jonathan Gannon and Matt LaFleur. Keys to me, you gotta keep that defense off the field. Run this through Jordan Love in the offense. Offensive line is a question mark for me. I don't know what that's going to be going into workouts, going into training camp and the preseason. Ultimately, what I came up with, and I debated on this, solid C is my draft grade for the Packers. I'm being harsh because of them not drafting really an offensive lineman to help add to, like, not a kind of blue chip offensive lineman, and they didn't get they didn't really address running back to me. There's not an offensive skill position player that they went out and got. So
yeah, they were pretty defensive heavy. I would give them more of a B- to C+ grade just because I saw some needs that they didn't address, which was disappointing because normally the Packers front office is pretty good at that. But during free agency, it's like if you're not going to do anything there, try to do something in the draft. But it's also hard when you don't have a first round pick. But I'm guessing you're including the Micah Parsons 2 first round draft picks in the grading as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I like that we went out. Like, I don't mind sacrificing a first round draft pick if it means that, like, okay, in mid-October, we're gonna get Micah Parsons back. Now, there's a lot of what ifs to that scenario, but I'm okay with spending that capital knowing that Micah Parsons is an incredibly talented player. And if you could go out and get that in the draft, that would be phenomenal. But a Micah Parsons does not exist in the current draft that we just went through. Or at least the Packers were not in the position to get a guy like Micah Parsons in the draft is what I'm getting at. So it's nice banking on the fact that you have Micah Parsons getting healthy and coming back sometime in October. So
definitely. Moving on to the Minnesota Vikings to conclude our evening.
Yes.
Let me start with the cons right away. They didn't really get any big-time flashy guys on offense. Would have loved to see a big-name running back or a tight end right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll leave it at that. Otherwise, I'm going to get in too far into the pros. I mean, with every con, there's a pro. With every pro, there's a con. It's balanced, yin and yang here. Injury risk with their first pick could be a cause for concern with Caleb Banks, and could come back to bite them if he can't stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of talk about the potential that he has, but there's also a lot of talk about the same foot being broken twice. Once during his playing career, and then once during the, I believe it was the rookie minicamp where he got hurt that second time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It seems they passed up on a big name, Dylan Theinman, at safety and did not prioritize getting a slot receiver, which could hurt them with both pass protection and the passing game in general, the offensive passing game.
Mm-hmm.
But I did see in free agency that they did sign plenty of wide receivers that were undrafted, so maybe something will work out here down the road.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the hard thing. Like, just to, comment on this for kind of 1 second before you jump back in here. Like, it's really hard kind of knowing what we're going to get. Like, the draft, these are essentially 7, you get 7 rounds, you get 7 lottery tickets, right? You don't exactly know what you're going to get out of this. Free agency could be great, could not be great, but I think ultimately my stance on this, and this goes maybe a little bit into the grade here, and I'll let you talk about that, but I think ultimately, to me, the Vikings are in a pretty good position. Like, I don't think there needs to be a lot of panic, but from what I see with the picks, I like what they did. I do like what they did, but I do agree with your stance on. I scratch my head a little bit about passing up Dylan Theinman, and I do scratch my head about not going out and trying to get a playmaker on offense somewhere.
Yeah, and you know what? It's hard too. I mean, the Vikings have had great luck with undrafted free agents. One of the most recent one that they signed, who they just used his tender, was Redmond. So we'll see. And then, obviously, the most famous in recent history was Adam Thielen. So we'll see what happens. See what happens.
Right. Yeah.
Going on to the pros, focused a lot on the defensive side.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully adding hopefully adding a lot of improvement to the interior pass rush while adding a physical safety to their secondary. Hey, this guy hits like Harrison Smith. I liked seeing his college footage. I saw him hit guys, cause fumbles. I was like, oh, that reminds me of the old Harrison days. Like,
yeah, dirty hair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say it reminded me of, like the beginning days where he was, I mean, not that he's ever been a dirty player, but, when it was like Dirty Harry, got a little bit of swag, going to hit hard, come across the middle.
Well, I mean, at the time, you probably didn't think that he wasn't a dirty player. He was just, passionate. But
yeah,
I probably would have thought the same thing. I'm hoping Jacoby Thomas can compete for playing time early on, and that he can really get in there and try to just break up a couple of passes and, stop a couple of stop a couple of people from reaching the end zone. That's all you can ask for in a safety, really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know. I feel like camp is going to be fun. Camp is going to be fun if you got a little safety competition, right? Like, training camp, preseason is probably going to be fun to watch. Miami is a team that was on the cusp of being in the national championship. So, or they were in the national championship. But either way, Miami's a squad full of talented players, and Jacoby Thomas is one of those talented players. So,
yeah. Moving on.
yeah.
Drafted a top ten prospect. Even with injuries, Caleb Banks has a lot of potential as a big addition to the defensive line. When I say big, this guy could potentially wreak havoc on opposing quarterbacks and quite easily break through those smaller guys on the offensive line. Which, as you know what, if I'm looking at it as if I'm a Packers fan who didn't revamp their offensive line during the draft or during free agency, you're like, we better do something because teams are going to be gunning for us against guys like this,
Yep.
who have something like this that can get to the quarterback, that are big and have those long arms too, where they can just reach up and swat the ball down. You're like, I need protection. So hopefully, I'm hoping that if I'm a Packers or a Lions fan right now, I'm hoping that they're looking at something in free agency, which I believe they will.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
undrafted free agents as well will come in to fill that role.
I mean, so do you see him being like the? I mean, it's hard to like know right now because we have not seen Caleb Banks play any football outside of college, right? But do you see his archetype being more like go and get the quarterback like Jared Allen, or is he more of like the Everson Griffin, go ahead and stuff the run, and occasionally you'll get an opportunity to get at the quarterback? Like,
I think he could be a very versatile player and do both. I think he could be a Clay Matthews type player.
oh, okay. I like that. I like that archetype a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
Just because, I feel like he has the long arms,
Yeah.
which I haven't seen in a while.
No.
So it's I would really like to see him, revive the purple people eaters a little bit and get to the quarterback. And PJ's like, as long as it's not on a Green Bay day, it's like, you guys can get close, swap the ball down or whatever, just don't injure our quarterback.
Right. Like I would prefer.
You don't have Malik Willis anymore. Is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Oh man, how much do I miss Malik Willis? I'll tell you this. Caleb Banks, if he does make this huge impact that you're talking about, if he could just not do it for 2 games out of the year, that'd be real great. Real great.
We will see what happens.
We will see.
And then the last point I wanted to make, there's definitely more than what I'm going to be saying here, but for the sake of time and for the sake of our sanity,
Yeah.
I think we can only go into this much stuff before we get too far out into the weeds.
Yeah.
They potentially added a lot of depth to the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they got a steal with Caleb Tierney
Yep.
from Northwestern. That's always an awesome offensive line group.
Yeah.
I thought they did very well at the end of the draft with sneaking a possibly. I don't think he's going to start this year.
Mm-hmm.
I could see him potentially starting. Is Gavin Gerhardt of Cincinnati. I think he will be a great depth piece, and if a guy goes down, he will be the guy to step up. I think he can step up, but hopefully the offensive line stays healthy so he can get a couple snaps here and there, and he doesn't have to go in right away. That situation last year was just awful.
A mess. It was a mess. So, yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I can say it was harsh on the Vikings. I was looking at the grade. I'm like, at first I see like all these, and don't don't go down the YouTube rabbit hole after the draft, folks. It's not a good place to be, nor is the comment section of those YouTube videos, because everybody has an opinion. A lot of armchair GMs.
Yep.
Some would say C minus, some would say C, some would say even some said D or F. I would say I would rate them as a solid B, as they address their needs on defense, but may have missed some big players early on.
Okay.
It seems like they are building towards longevity, with 3 of their defensive veterans leaving this season, and calculated risk should pay off in a big way. One of the things I want to comment on,
Yeah.
a lot of people will say, oh, well, these young guys, we don't know what they can do. Well, the Vikings signed 3 veterans last year.
Yep.
3 veterans who were supposed to be great. We paid them a lot of money, and all 3 of them are gone this year.
They are.
On defense.
Yep.
None of them produced in the way that they should have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, it just goes to show, like, you never know who's going to pan out until they actually start playing with the team. I think you have a lot of potential here. Yeah, like I said, if I am the Vikings organization, first off, if I'm Brian Flores, I'm really happy because I get to work with a lot of new guys. If I'm Kevin O'Connell, I'm happy that I have the same offensive line from last year if they stay healthy, and a couple guys for depth, and that Justin School is gone. One of the things that I also would like to note is that they did draft a fullback. They're one of the teams that uses it very well and often. We will see how that works out too. Do I wish CJ Ham would have come back for one more year? Absolutely. As a Vikings fan and, just as a Minnesotan, because he is native to Minnesota, you want to see it. But overall, my point is, again, I'm getting off into the weeds here. My point is that if I'm in that building and welcoming the new recruits and getting to work, I'm very excited for what potential the season has for this year.
Absolutely. I'd agree. I mean, there's a lot of upside potential. I think for all of the teams, there's upside potential here. There's a lot to be excited about if you're a Vikings or a Packers, a Lions, a Bears fan. As we discussed, we're going to see it unfold in the offseason. We're going to see it unfold in training camp and the preseason, and then when we get to real game action, I think it's going to be really exciting to see. And like always, it's probably going to be ultra competitive and going to come down to some of the last weeks of the season to determine who ends up getting the crown for the NFC North and who ends up making the playoffs, who doesn't. So, it'll be fun.
3 teams had 9 wins last year, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty dang good from the standpoint. Nothing to complain about there.
It was competitive almost to the very end too. So we didn't know who was making the playoffs, who'd get what seed. Hopefully, we get some of that this year. It is a little bit close at the end for my rooting interest, but it does make it entertaining. So I am content with that if it happens again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that, this is a bit of a longer one, folks. So, we appreciate you sticking around to the very end here. This has been our draft recap. So we hope you'll tune in for more. This is for the North, by the way. And we appreciate you tuning in. We would love it if you like, subscribe, and follow us and turn on notifications, do all that stuff, engage with the content, leave a comment. I'm PJ.
I'm Chris. Just a quick note, too. probably won't be producing an episode every week, but we will try to get one out every other week with any updates. Summer is coming up too, so there might be some times when we are meeting, but we are quietly planning for the upcoming season. So stay tuned. We will give you updates. As always, like PJ said, like and subscribe. And this is For the North. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Thank you. Peace out.